Husband's been secretly meeting a woman he claims is just a coworker, but I found evidence it's more, and if that sentence feels like the opening line of a true crime podcast, I wish it were, because then there'd be an ad break where someone told me to hydrate and breathe. I'm Jamie, 32, a high school English teacher who can spot foreshadowing in a poem from 20 paces and somehow missed it in my own kitchen, which is arrogant and funny in a tragic sort of way, and the first clue wasn't lipstick on a collar or a hotel receipt curling in a pocket, it was a spreadsheet. Here's the thing about being an English teacher. Everyone assumes you're allergic to numbers. I'm not. I grade with rubrics, I tally class participation like a sports statistician, and on Sundays I reconcile our budget because it relaxes me in the same way alphabetizing paperbacks does. That morning, the spreadsheet just looked wrong. One category, work meals, had sprouted like mildew. Lunches every other day, always under the threshold that triggers alerts on the card, and almost all of them in the same 3 neighborhoods, which is odd because my husband Nathan works in an office park that mostly smells like ambition and microwaved fish. I could have ignored it. I could have made a breakfast burrito and a better mood. Instead, I clicked through the digital receipts because curiosity plus unease is a lab experiment no one should run alone. There were scribbled notes he always writes on the merchant copy: great soup, ask about project, tell her about the dog. Her. The pronoun was a splinter under the nail of my day. If this were a story I'd give my seniors, this is where the unreliable narrator would insist she wasn't snooping. I'm not going to lie to you, I snooped. I opened our shared calendar and noticed a series of Teams syncs in the city, not the office, blocked with neat gray rectangles, always at 12:30. I clicked into one. Location, Harkin Cafe. Attendees, Nathan plus L initials. Of course. Then Slack pings on his laptop started ghosting my screen because he never logs out at home and we've never been a password lock house, which is either a sign of trust or a stage set. There it was, lunch with Lila, he'd typed. And a second later her reply, yes. I'll bring the thing. The thing. Novelists keep their nouns, cheaters lose them. I sat back on the stool and looked at nothing. The kettle clicked off behind me like a metronome. I texted my sister Erin, emergency eyebrows please. She replied with skull emojis and on my way with scones. Erin is 30, a pediatric nurse whose superpower is treating disasters like heavy groceries. Still awkward, still weighty, but manageable if you pick your stance. While I waited, I did what I always do when a feeling is trying to bully me. I made a list on an index card like a teacher. What I know, what I think, what I need. Under no, I wrote, Lila exists, lunches exist, receipts exist. Under think, I wrote, it isn't just a coworker. Under need, I wrote, nouns, daylight, water. Erin walked in, tossed a paper bag on the counter, looked at my face and didn't make a joke. Okay, she said, tying her hair up like she was about to scrub into surgery. I showed her the receipts, the calendar, the Slack. She whistled low. If you want, we go full auntie and flip a table, she said. If you want, we go full librarian and sort this into a narrative. I picked librarian. It's my native tongue. We built a timeline. The lunches began 2 months ago. A coffee catch-up here, a quick sync there, and then their frequency ramped like a plot you could teach, rising action disguised as routine. There were 2 charges at a stationery store, fancy pens, the kind he rolls his eyes at when I buy them. There was a late Uber from the Mulliner, a bar with dim lighting and good ice. There was a charge for a bookstore in a neighborhood Nathan only visits with me at Christmas for the window displays. On the counter I laid out the receipts like flashcards, Harkin Cafe Monday. Juniper Deli, Thursday. The Mulliner, Friday. Both of us stared at them like they might confess. Call him, Erin said. Ask him to bring milk on his way home. Make it banal so his mouth forgets to be clever later. I did. He answered on the second ring, voice bright like the sun was a personality trait. Hey, I'm in between meetings, he said. Do we need anything? Milk, I said. And lunch. I added too casually. Already ate, he said. Team thing. Harkin? I asked. He laughed. No, Juniper, he said, and my spine composed a tiny dignified poem. Damn it, damn him. I put the receipts back in their envelope like artifacts and decided not to confront until daylight filled a room we both had to share. But my hands wouldn't be still. They opened the whole closet for a broom and hit a box I didn't recognize. Shoe size, brand logo, the kind of box men keep because it feels wasteful to throw away nice cardboard. Light as vanity. Inside, tissue, receipt, a card with rounded handwriting that looked like the kind that wins praise in elementary school. Happy demo day. For good pens and good ideas. L. The box did not contain pens. It contained a leather-bound notebook embossed with his initials in gold. I touched the cover and wanted it to bite me. Beneath the notebook, a Polaroid, Nathan's hand, a different hand with a ring that wasn't mine, 2 coffee cups, a napkin with a cartoon whale drawn on it. On the back, the same handwriting, you said your brain swims. Bring a whale then. L. I am a few things, teacher, sister, tea enthusiast, but above all I am a person who hates being made into an extra in someone else's romance. I put the notebook back. I did not cry, not yet. Crying felt like a thing that would take control away from my smart, furious index cards. When Nathan came home, he did the things that used to charm me and now sounded like Foley effects. He hung his keys with a jingle. He kissed my hairline. He held up the milk like a trophy. They were out of 2%, he said, so I got 1% and ambition. The joke fell to the tile. He clocked me then, really looked, and set the jug down carefully like it was our last prop. What's wrong? He asked. I turned the envelope over and let the receipts fan out between us. Who is Lila? His face did math, surprise first, then denial, then a small resignation like a person who knows the test has started and didn't study. She's a coworker, he said. She's just a coworker who buys you embossed notebooks and draws whales on napkins. I said. A coworker whose initial lives in our calendar like a tiny weather system. His shoulders dropped. Okay, he said. Not just coworker. We've been spending time. Sometimes I wish I could bottle the moment before a person says the thing that rearranges your house. Your body makes a promise to your future self in that moment. I will not embarrass you. I put my palms on the counter. Are you in love with her? I asked. The question is a scalpel. He flinched like it cut. No, he said. Maybe. I don't know. It felt new. I felt dulled down. He swallowed. We talk about work and she looks at me like I built the moon with a wrench. We walk and I feel he struggled for a word that wouldn't make me hate him. Weightless, he said finally. Which makes me a cliché, I know. You're not a cliché, I said. You're a man who didn't know how to say he was bored. His eyes pooled, anger, shame, a small attempt at sympathy with himself. I wasn't bored with you, he said, panicked, and the honesty in that sentence made me more tired than if he'd said yes. I was bored with me. Erin reappeared like an ambulance, planted herself next to me in sister formation. Nathan's mouth opened to perform contrition, but Erin lifted a hand and he closed it. You're going to do 3 things, she said, a nurse dispensing orders. You're going to call Lila and tell her this is over on speaker. You're going to show Jamie every message so she gets to choose what she wants to know. And then you're going to sleep on the couch. Tomorrow you can be a philosopher about it. He stared at her, then at me, and found no exit cue. He dialed. The call connected on the second ring and she answered like she already knew his breathing pattern. Hey you, she said softly. He looked at me like he wanted forgiveness for liking that. I turned my face to stone. Lila, he said, voice low and steady. I can't do this anymore. I've been lying to my wife by omission and to you by permission. I'm ending this. There was a long breath on the other end, the kind people take when a script is ruined. So I was an audition, she said, voice shifting from warm to steel. No, he said quickly. You were, he faltered. You were a bad decision in good lighting. Even in that moment, my teacher brain noted the line for its rhythm. She said, tell Jamie I'm not a homewrecker. You invited me into a house you pretended was empty, and hung up. I sat down, not because I needed to, but because my spine told me to act like a person who trusts furniture. We read the messages. He offered to filter them. I refused. I didn't need to read every good morning or every your code joke killed me, but I wanted to see the slope of it, the way language softens when people make room for what they shouldn't. There were a lot of work words at first and then fewer. There were whale emojis. There was a selfie of him in a conference room with his tie slightly loose, someone's idea of intimacy. There were no naked photos. There was intimacy threaded through calendar invites and coffee cups, which is worse in its mundane way. A marriage can endure one bad night. A marriage erodes under 1,000 small perfect afternoons. He slept on the couch. I lay in our bed and stared at the ceiling where a crack I'd never noticed traced an almost beautiful line. In the morning, I met with a therapist whose office smelled like lint and lemons. She did not let me perform my pain into poetry. "What are your yeses?" she asked. "What are your nos?" I wrote them: yes, honesty, therapy, time, apologies without choreography. No, minimization, secrecy, just friends, gaslighting, blame spun like sugar. She asked me for the smallest true sentence about Nathan. "He isn't evil," I said. "He isn't stupid. He is a man who forgot to make himself interesting where he promised to live." She nodded like I'd handed her a textbook. Nathan began his own therapy with a man who looks like he keeps long walks in his pocket. They did childhood inventory and the shape of attention and the gross, honest truth that praise can be a drug. Together, in couples counseling, we had to say sentences out loud that should be obvious and aren't. "I need you to be boring with me sometimes. I need you to ask to be seen instead of going to a new theater." We made rules that would sound silly if they weren't saving us. If a coworker wants a lunch, it goes in the calendar with a last name and a Y. If the lunch becomes a routine, I get told like I'm not an audience member. If he feels an urge to flirt because he's lonely or bored, he texts me urge and goes for a run or cleans the bathroom, both of which are feasts for humility. If I feel the urge to audit, I text Erin clipboard, and she calls and talks to me about hospital gossip until the acid leaves my throat. We told our family's a version, rough patch, we're in counseling. They did what families do. His mother tried to bake forgiveness into a casserole. My mother said, "Eat," because in our house eating is a sacrament and grief is a calorie-burning sport. My father texted, "Choose yourself daily," which is not his style and meant he borrowed it from a book and still wanted it to be true. I ran into Lila once at a farmer's market because the city is a small machine. She was shorter than I expected, with a scar at her eyebrow like a comma. We saw each other, we both faltered, then she walked over without grandstanding. "I'm not going to perform," she said. "Good," I said. We stood there surrounded by nectarines pretending to be innocent, and she said, "He made me feel like the cleverest version of myself. I liked who I was in rooms with him. I liked who he was with me before he outsourced it," I said, and we both winced at how good that line was. "I'm not a villain," she said. "I'm not a victim," I replied. We were both sloppy with oxygen. She nodded, a small salute, then stepped aside so an elderly man could reach the basil. That was all. It was enough. What does forgiveness look like when you don't put a ribbon on it? It looks like collecting his shirts from the dryer and noticing the one with the missing button and sewing it back on without making it a metaphor. It looks like him washing my car in the rain because he heard me say out loud once that the windshield made me feel murky. It looks like two people at a small round table choosing to talk about boring things: trash day, the neighbor's new cat, the fact that the light in the living room at 4:30 makes the dust look dramatic, instead of building a romance koan about whales. Some nights I still wake at 2:17 and stand in the kitchen, pressing my palms to the counter, reminding the room that I belong to me. Some mornings he reaches for his phone and I hate him for being a person with thumbs, and then he puts it face down and says tea, and I let that be an evidence of its own. He sent me a calendar invite last week, lunch, Jamie, at a tiny Venezuelan place we've been promising to try since we moved in. He included a note: "Window seat, you like the light." It corny wounded me. We went. We ate apa and talked about my sophomore's essays on unreliable narrators. He admitted he started to text a joke to someone else and texted it to me instead, and I pretended not to know that was the point. If you're sitting with your own spreadsheet and a kettle trying to decide whether the story is an anecdote or a chapter or the whole book, here's what I learned in the messy margin notes of my life. Ask for nouns, not violins. Bring a witness with good eyebrows. Insist on daytime. Choose what you need that doesn't depend on someone else's performance. Write the timeline but don't live inside it. Go somewhere your body can be a body. Walk, run. Curl up on a floor you've swept. Let there be rules that feel unsexy and save your life. And remember that bored is not a diagnosis. It's a sign to build something interesting where you promise to stay. Tonight I'll be at my desk grading papers, red pen uncapped, teenagers' sentences full of courage and chaos. Nathan will come home smelling like rain and toner and he'll kiss the top of my head, and maybe my shoulder will flinch and maybe it won't. We'll cook something that tastes like competent people live here: chickpeas, garlic, the good olive oil we used to save for company before I decided we are company. We'll sit on the couch and argue about whether to finally replace the lamp we both hate. He'll say he can rewire it, and I'll say some things cannot be rewired and must simply be replaced, and we'll both understand the sentence in two ways and let it hover. Before bed, he'll put his phone on the dresser, face down, and I'll put my hand out in the dark. If his finds it, I'll squeeze once, not a truce, not a promise, just a punctuation mark that says, "For now, continue." And if in the river of future days I find that the current pulls toward more secrets, if I feel my spine rehearsing speeches in the middle of the night, I will make tea, write my yeses and nos again, and choose the brave button. Not the romantic one. Not the revenge one. The boring, faithful, brutal, brave one. Tell the truth to him, to me, to the kitchen. Pick my own name like it's the only whale in the room and swim toward the light I already know I like.